Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's no longer hungry. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most Saturday mornings, or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Of vengeance.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he's Vengeance's kid brother, Mischievous. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Actually, that's way more apt. Ahoy!
Each week we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. She did actually pull that last punch. It's Susan Kamyat Stevens! Good to have you back, Susan. How you been?
Thanks. Good to be back. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been good. It's good. I'm really excited to talk about both of these movies.
Yeah. A couple really good ones on tap today. And by really good, I mean really interesting discussions. And we'll determine how we feel about their good or badness in a bit. But The Batman is out, and we'll talk about that. And then Fresh on Hulu, we will chat about as well today. And of course, we've got Best Ever Challenge. We're doing Best Ever John Turturro movies, or Best Ever movies that John Turturro is in. We'll count down our best ever on that, and then we'll do some buried treasure. Before we get into our reviews, another reminder that the Sposkers picks are happening now. So if you want to get your Sposkers picks in before the big event, it's crazy this year because we are headed to the CCAs, the Critics' Choice Awards, that are happening this year 2 weeks before the Oscars.
So weird.
This is so strange.
Yeah.
And obviously that happened because of the Omicron surge and postponing the awards. And but it's I kind of like it. It kind of feels like there's more momentum to it in some interesting ways. But yeah, go ahead, Susan.
No, I just say, especially after the SAGs last week, it's kind of, I mean, honestly, the Globes were kind of like forgotten. It was so long ago. And now people can kind of get their ballots ready and be like, start really predicting, because that was a game changer. I think the SAGs was. And then depending on who wins at the Critics' Choice, I don't know. Yeah. I guess it gives you more of a better idea of who's going to win at the Oscars.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Jessica Chastain win for Best Actress at the SAGs.
I'm so happy for her.
It's a great choice. It's a great choice. She's so good in that movie.
She deserves to win the Oscar.
Coda getting the ensemble, was really, really cool.
That is what's going. Well, I mean, Power of the Dog wasn't even nominated, but I think after that win, because Academy hasn't voted yet. Right. And that's we haven't even voted yet. So I just think it's interesting how you can watch that win and you can second guess your vote and be like, wait a second. You know what? That was a really good movie. That does mean a lot to the deaf community. This is more than what I thought this movie was. I think I might change I think I'm going to vote for them. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm doing that, but it's amazing how that happens.
When are your votes were due a while ago, though, right?
For nominations. For nominations. So the nominations come out. We haven't done our final voting. So our final voting happens the day before the awards. That's all. That's how it always is.
Yeah.
They send our final ballots
like a week or so before.
2 days. I think it's actually 2 days before the awards. They send our final ballots.
9th. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. 9th or 10th.
No, you could be right. You could be right. That's actually 3 days before our awards. Yes.
Yeah.
Or 4.
So it's always been it's not a pandemic thing.
No, it's always that way.
No. I like that they do that. I think that's a good idea to let you vote closer to the show.
Oh, absolutely. There's no reason to vote early. Keep watching movies, keep
rewatching them,
rewatching stuff. Yeah. No, totally. In fact, I think the Critics' Choice, if I heard this correctly, our awards take place 2 days before Oscar balloting closes. If I have those numbers correct.
I think Oscar ballot closes March 16th or 17th, one of those.
Okay, so a few days before that is when our awards take place.
So what we decide could change an Academy voter's opinion too.
Yeah, sure, of course. That's all the interesting part about it. Here's what the Sposkers are. You get to go and pick your picks for the awards. Now, these aren't who you want to win. This is a prediction contest. You are trying to predict who you think will win the actual Academy Awards. And that is at siftpop.com, siftpop.com. And then there's a link at the top that just says Sposkers. I've also tweeted it out a couple times, so you can find that out on my Twitter. But it's a really fun way to join with hundreds of other people to kind of get your picks in. And then we do a live show that Sunday night during the Academy Awards. We do a live reaction show and also add up the points as the show goes on, and do it that way, and then crown a winner at the end. And we crown a winner amongst our gurus, which is what we call our participants on the show, and our writers on the website, as well as just a general award winner as well. And then, of course, there's the most important: will Andrew beat Aaron, or will Aaron beat Andrew? Which is always a theme as well. So all that is happening very, very soon. Go get your Sposkers picks in. And I am going to move the deadline a little bit forward just because I'm still not sure when they're giving away those off-air awards. So I want to make sure all picks are in before they give those away.
I hate they're doing that.
Yeah, I know they're trying to make it feel like they're still on the air. They're like going to edit a package together where it feels like they're getting their awards on the show or whatever.
Like the 8 awards that not.
Yeah.
They said they're going to, it's an hour before, they'll pre-record it, and then they'll edit it down, and they're supposed to show it in the show. It's supposed to be featured in the show, but I don't like that. I'm very upset about that.
No, it's really, it's frustrating that there continues to be such a large part of that, whoever's making those decisions, who feels like we're trying to get non-movie lovers to watch the Oscars.
Exactly.
And it's just like, have a 7-hour Oscars broadcast, tell movie lovers everywhere that you're going to blow it out and nominate 10 people in every category and have a really celebrate the year in movies.
Exactly. They've been, these last couple of years, they've been so focused on trying to reach non-movie lovers, like you said, people who don't care about the Oscars, that they're forgetting who their devoted fans are, who are watching the show.
Right.
And they'll come. The other people will watch if they want to. Don't. It's so stupid.
Yeah, the Super Bowl doesn't take out the football. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's people go to Super Bowl parties because they love people who like football, or they just want to hang out with people, further. Like, it's, and then it's just on the TV at places. Like, anyways. And the people who are really into it will watch it intently, and the people who aren't will eat snacks and hang out and play games or whatever. But they haven't seen it that way. But anyways, the Sposkers, however, we will celebrate movies as much as we can that night live here on the channel. So check that out again, siftpop.com. Click on Sposkers. All right, let's get into it, guys. Here we go. Let's talk about the Batman. In his second year of fighting crime, Batman uncovers corruption in Gotham City that connects to his own family while facing a serial killer known as the Riddler. Batman is Robert Pattinson, now taking the cape and cowl, and Zoe Kravitz playing Selena Kyle, or Catwoman, Paul Dano as the Riddler. Jeffrey Wright stepping in is James Gordon, and John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. What did you think about this movie, guys? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Andrew, Batman aficionado, lover of all things Dark Knight. Where do you land on this one?
I loved it. I really did. I love this movie.
Nice. Susan, where do you land?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it so much. It's so early to say it's one of my favorite films of the year, I think it's the best film of the year so far. But yeah, I've been torn with which Batman I like more between this and Dark Knight. That's how much I loved it.
Nice. Guys, I didn't like this movie.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to land for the sake of how incredible this is going to be. The most amazing things I say about a movie that I end up not liking. Like, this is that kind of review for me. So because of that, I'm going to land in the lower side of it was okay. Just because there's so much about this movie that is spectacular. But overall, you know me, I'm a message theme guy, and there is so much there that I absolutely do not like and don't understand. And maybe you guys can help me. Maybe by the end of this, I'll like it more. Because maybe you can help me understand some things that I don't understand about this movie. And we will get into it, but yeah, I'm going to go with low side of just okay. But you guys loved it, and I want to hear all the things you love about it, because I guarantee I love a lot of them too. So let's talk about some of the amazing stuff with this movie. Susan, kick us off. What are some of the things you love?
Oh gosh. Well, just from the start, just like the filmmaking of it, of course, I think it's the best looking Batman, hands down. Just the cinematography, the shots in general, the music. I don't know what it was. I only found out afterwards that the Nirvana soundtrack in there, like, I guess supposedly they were trying to base his character around Kurt Cobain or something like that, like kind of give that vibe or something. And he did kind of look like Kurt Cobain. I didn't think about that. But,
I heard somebody call him Brood Wayne.
Yeah. Well, he's the most brooding Batman, I would probably say. But maybe because I am a fan of like those like Saw films too, I was totally digging that horror element that this had, because Batman is dark. I mean, it's a dark story. It's a dark hero. I didn't know going in they were going to start where he's been Batman for 2 years. We've never seen that era of Batman, or I haven't, and I just thought that was really interesting to see that point where people are just starting to know him and they don't even know his full potential yet. I think Paul Dano was like obviously the best Riddler. I mean, it's not a huge.
I mean, come on, Jim Carrey's right there, man.
Oh, right. I mean, but Paul Dano was. I mean, that guy is. He's not far from an Oscar either, I think, because he is so incredibly talented. But he is.
Agreed.
I was just confused. I was confused because the posters say that Colin Farrell's in this movie, and he's not in this movie, and I don't understand. It's false advertising.
Right.
Yeah,
he was incredible too.
He was insane.
Every
he was so good. Yeah,
every Zoe Kravitz. I call her the most realistic Catwoman, actually, of all. And I've liked every Catwoman. Well, I never watched the Halle Berry one, but I thought
you're okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You're okay.
I think Anne Hathaway did a great job. I was a huge Michelle Pfeiffer fan as Catwoman, but Zoe Kravitz really killed it. And oh my God, I could honestly go on forever about it, because this is another one.
Well, you've already checked off a bunch of stuff that I totally agree with. The score is one of the greatest scores I've ever heard in my life. It's
Michael
insanely good.
Is brilliant.
Oh, it's so good. The visuals are astounding. There are frames of this movie that are some of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I guess maybe we will do a SIF spoil on this. So I'll hold off on mentioning specific like moments or frames until then, just in case people haven't seen the movie. But yes, is absolutely gorgeous. The performances you mentioned, I mean, down the line, the performances are great. I guess the only one that I would maybe push back on as not being great is maybe the Alfred performance. That was the only one I kind of, I was just kind of like,
Andy
what
Serkis?
Is this character? Yeah, the Andy Serkis performance. I was just kind of, but that's neither here nor there, because every single other performance is astonishing. Zoe Kravitz is great in this Catwoman, but we'll talk in spoilers why this Catwoman befuddles me. So we'll get to that too. But yes, she is incredible in performing well. So all that stuff that you mentioned is absolutely great. So yeah, You're definitely ticking off my list of all the things that I thought were amazing in this movie.
Yeah, it's just it, and for me, anyone will tell you I am a complainer of a long run time. I think most of my negative critiques of a film is that it could have been shorter, like cut 45 minutes or something. But I thought I like when it was over, I could have rewatched it like that day. I just
even the half a dozen Lord of the Rings style endings at the end didn't seem too long and drawn out to you.
No,
I didn't feel any Lord of the Rings endings.
I didn't feel
movie.
Lord of the Rings.
There's like 7 endings to this movie.
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh yes. We'll count them together.
Wasn't. There was always something.
Fine.
There was a bigger thing at the end. You know, like you knew there was something bigger.
Yeah.
That wasn't resolved yet. So when they finished this one thing, you were like, oh wait,
I thought they hit their ending 30 minutes before the actual ending of this movie.
No, and that's what makes and that's what builds the big climax. You know, you have something like minor that's like, oh, okay, that's resolved, but it kind of
we'll talk in spoilers because what I'm talking about 3 minutes before the end of the movie is not minor. It's the overall message and theme of the movie comes to a conclusion 30 minutes before it's over.
No, I think this isn't spoilerish to say because I think it's been announced, but I think the ending of this movie, all those things that I think Aaron is complaining might not be the right word, but you're frustrated with, is that this
was the only time I felt the movie's length. I will agree with you up until that point. I didn't feel like this movie was too long, but the end felt drawn out to me.
I think that what they were doing was saying, don't worry, more is coming, and here's what is in store for you. It wasn't until the very end of this movie where I thought, okay, now it's time to wrap up. Whereas with the Return of the King, yeah, I get that there's a lot of stories ends to tie off. But this one, it felt like, we're teasing the future. Now here is the ending. That's how I felt about it.
Okay. Yeah, well, let's talk about it more in spoilers. We can definitely do that. This will be probably a decent sized sip spoil. We'll try to cover all the important things that convey how we felt about the movie without spoiling it. But Andrew, what about you? What are some other things that Susan didn't mention that you want to love on?
Well, I want to talk about 2 things, and I can save one for later. But the main thing I want to talk about is I love how much Matt Reeves understands not only Batman, but the Batman world. I think that his knowledge and his dedication to making a good Batman movie is something that I am so excited somebody finally, decided to take a chance on, because it's one thing that I've always wanted to see in a live action Batman that I've never seen is his moniker. He is the world's greatest detective. This is the movie where I go, yes, I got an amazing Batman detective movie. Honestly, this might be like one of my favorite crime dramas ever. A lot of people would point to something like Seven or any of the David Fincher movies, and I know that's been that.
And Susan mentioned Saw. Those are a lot of the comparisons. Yeah.
You joke, but the first Saw movie is actually a really interesting detective movie.
No, I wasn't kidding. I've heard a lot of people make those comparisons, and I think they're apt.
Yeah, no. They've been comparing it to Saw, Zodiac Killer.
Yeah, Zodiac, Saw, Seven, those kind of things.
Fincher movies, yeah. Well, not Saw, but
Although David Fincher's Saw would have definitely been very, very.
It would have been an interesting movie, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, he understands not only how to shoot this movie, and I love the color palette, by the way, with the reds, symbolizing birth, courage, hatred, anger, and that's something that you definitely see in this Batman. Is he is a vengeful he is vengeance in this movie, and it's not until later that he feels like he has earned the moniker of Batman, and that's actually, if you pay attention, that's when the color palette of the movie changes. It actually changes to more blues and brighter colors towards the end of this movie, and I'm like, okay, so he's no longer this object of fear. He's now is a symbol of hope and change, restoration of what things used to be. So I love that element of it. One thing, and this is the thing I really think I'm gonna have to ramble on for a minute here, so bear with me, please.
Do it. That's what we're here for, to ramble on.
One thing I see a lot of people complaining about Robert Pattinson's performance in this movie is that he is a great Batman, but he is a terrible Bruce Wayne. That he is, a mopey emo guy who, is not really trying to hide who Batman is, And my counter to that is what a lot of people need to realize is that Batman, whenever he puts on the cape and the cowl in the very beginning of his career, is a lot like this. He isn't, the charismatic billionaire who is, trying to, throw people off the trail that he could potentially be Batman. So he's already Batman, or he is becoming Batman. And it isn't until later on in his crime-fighting vendetta that he realizes, I need to put on a facade for Bruce Wayne. So whenever you see this guy he's like, I don't care what happens to me, he's also saying, I don't care enough about putting on a persona for Bruce Wayne, because anything that happens to Bruce Wayne is secondary to me, the Batman. And it's interesting because Batman, for as smart as he is always learning, and he's always learning from his mistakes. So seeing this early on version of Batman, who is more rough and tumble and a lot more vengeful and angry towards his, what he's willing to do physically to his opponents. Like, I'll cripple people. That's fine. They won't do anything anymore after that, That style of Batman is something you see at the very beginning of Bruce Wayne's run as Batman, and the very end when you get to like the Dark Knight Returns, when he's like old Batman. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna get evil again. So I really like that Matt Reeves is taking the time, and he has the patience to say, this will be how we see Batman evolve throughout however many potential movies there are.
Nice.
Yeah.
I definitely came out of the end of this thinking this will be a lot of people's favorite Batman movie, and wishing I was one of them. But and that's what I've continued to tell people. And I think even I tweeted yesterday a little bit about this, but I always follow up any tweet I have that has a negative element to it. I shouldn't say always. I try to follow up with the idea of, I genuinely am excited for people who love movies that I don't get or that I don't enjoy or whatever, and genuinely really, wish I had seen the same movie they did. And in many ways, I did see the same movie you guys did. A lot of what you're saying, I totally agree with. I think this movie has. I'm going to kind of shift into my problems here. Because we've talked about most of the things positive-wise that at least I wanted to mention. For me, this is a movie that understands a version of a story that is really cool and thematically wonderful that doesn't fit, for me, what the movie thinks it's trying to do with its main character. I know that's a little bit of an obtuse way to say it. I'm trying not to spoil things. Really do have to talk about the ending to really get into what I'm talking about here. But this is a movie that sets up a hero, quote unquote, that at the end of the day, it doesn't allow for a space to deliver on. And there are a lot of things that that the movie leads to that are really interesting and beautiful and wonderful, and the points it's making are really good. It just, at the end of the day, undercuts everything that the movie is trying to do when it comes down to the end. And I was really frustrated with the end of this movie, not just because of the length of it and those kind of things. I was frustrated with the things that the movie all of a sudden thought were important that I completely disagreed with. I'll just say the Catwoman thing made no sense to me. I don't know what the movie was trying to do with that, what it was trying to say with that. I had no connection to that character's, motivations with the relationships of that character. I didn't understand why that was such a crucial part of the finish. I didn't understand the finish of the villain. The finish of the villain made no sense to me. It's completely undercut by a decision that, without spoiling it, I'll just say, really? You have to do that here too? Do we really need that here? Like, it just completely neuters the villain. One of the endings does. And so it's one of those things where until we really talk about the specifics, you're just going to have to trust that stuff was so annoying to me that I couldn't deal with the rest of the movie and all the beautiful things I saw as anything that I would come away going, well done, because I don't think it's well done. I think that the ending is completely botched, and it really undercuts and neuters the rest of the movie. So yeah,
cannot wait for spoiler talk.
I understand. Listen, I get it, but in order to really get specific about those things, I am going to have to talk about specific choices the movie makes at the end with its characters and things it decides to show. Other than that, the only other non-spoilery, kind of negative things I would say aren't really the point. There's people in the comments right now who are saying things like, I wasn't in a dark and broody mood, or am I ever in a dark and broody mood? Look, I love Zodiac. I love, there are dark and broody movies that I really come away from loving. That's not an impossible thing. And those things aren't it. It really isn't the tone or atmosphere of this movie that I come away against it for. Sure, there's not a lot of humor here. That's okay. The movie didn't want to be a funny movie. It didn't want to have quippy quirks. It wanted to be darker. It wanted to be, have that tone. That doesn't bother me. The stuff you said about Bruce Wayne, just figuring out who he is, like young Bruce Wayne stuff, that stuff is really interesting to me. And I don't, of course he's going to be really broody coming out of everything he's come out of and losing his parents and that kind of stuff and trying to figure out who he is. I just think the movie thinks it knows who he is by the end, but doesn't provide the movie that actually commits to that version of who the movie thinks he is. So yes, I know you're both giving me very confused looks, and I totally understand what you're saying.
No, I'm trying to. I guess I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, I'm actually right there with Susan. I'm like, I want to understand so I can tell you where you're wrong.
And you will, and genuinely, you may convince me. Like, I may just be missing some things. That has happened before on this podcast where I haven't liked something and somebody will enlighten me to something I missed, and I'll be like, oh, well, that kind of locks it in place for me. But the thing that, if you've listened to me for any length of time, that you know about me is message and themes rule the day for me. And I feel like this movie botched those so hardcore at the end. And part of the reason it's so hardcore is because it's such a good message. The message of this movie is so good. But the movie doesn't use it in a way that understands how the characters relate to that message. And it was so frustrating for me. It's kind of like a reverse Greatest Showman in some ways, where it's like, the movie, makes this wonderful character out of a terrible human being. And it's just kind of like puts that on its head a little. That's kind of the opposite of that. But yes, anyhow, I will explain more in the SIF spoil, and I apologize how frustrating that is. But for those who have seen it, just listen to that episode. It's right there in your podcast feed. Just listen to it next, and we'll chat a little bit more about it. Anything else you guys wanted to say about the movie in a non-spoiler fashion?
Two things. I guess there's technically kind of a post-credit scene. You don't need to stick around for it.
Yeah.
There is something there, but not really.
Is there? I stayed for the whole credits. I don't remember.
It's like it's not even a credit scene. It's like
okay.
It's barely anything.
I got it. Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
So
it's not a scene.
It's something
there's some
there,
post-credits information.
Exactly.
Got it. Yeah.
The other thing is I hope that there's always a moment whenever it comes to a superhero movie, like, oh, that's the scene I'm gonna, lay my hat on, as a scene that made me go, oh, here we go. And that's the first time you hear the Batmobile in this movie. Whenever that thing revs up at the very beginning, I'm like, this is gonna be it hadn't even started, and I knew this is gonna be my favorite scene in the movie. And you know what? It was such an amazing scene. the design of the Batmobile, because you see little hints of it every now and then, like as he's walking around the Bat Cave or Bat train station, whatever you want to call it. Is you see like, oh, you see the engine over here, you see the car in the background, and then you finally hear it all put together, and you're like, oh, I needed this. And yeah, I love that there's always a scene for just an adrenaline scene in an action movie, and this was definitely that scene for me.
Susan, do you have one last thing you want to say?
Just to say that I do think Robert Pattinson actually did a really great job in this movie. I didn't realize I haven't seen a whole lot of. I guess I'm looped out of like the negative thing, but yeah, just on the emo thing, like what you said, Aaron, too. Just that, yeah, of course he's going to act like that at that point in his life. Why wouldn't he? He's barely Batman.
Yeah, I don't mind that take on the character at all. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know why people are complaining about that. Yeah. But no, I think he did it really. I just a lot of people were hesitant when he got casted. I was one of them, and I think that he was fantastic. I wouldn't say he's the best Batman in my opinion, but he still did a really great job.
I agree with that. My one last thing is that I had this common thing for me when I was talking with a friend that I went to see the movie with, and I was like, you know what, some of my favorite like reveals and moments were, and I tell them a moment, and for everyone they were like, oh yeah, that's in the trailer. Oh yeah, that's in the trailer. And I'm like, what? Why Hollywood? Why are you putting all these amazing things in the trailers? Just let people experience them in the movies. Oh, but anyways, that happens here, and I guess I'll make it two last things, because I did also want to say I really thought they handled kind of the winks in this movie really well. There are some moments. There's a moment where the penguin is chained and he has to walk, and he looks like he's doing the penguin walk. Like there's little stuff like that where it's just like, that's fun. What do you live in a cave? That kind of stuff is like those winks and stuff where I think we're fine in this movie. They didn't seem out of place and too forced. So,
they're few and far between, but there are some funny moments in this movie that don't feel forced.
Yeah, I agree, and I also agree that they are few and far between, purposefully. That is purposeful in the color palette and what you were talking about. It like it's a muted color palette, but it does have some nuance to it. It does have some change. All that stuff is true. So yeah. So basically, I loved this movie, except for I didn't like it. All right. Since I've cleared that all up, let's move on to our next review. Let's talk about Fresh. Frustrated by scrolling dating apps only to end up on lame, tedious dates, Noah takes a chance by giving her number to the awkwardly charming Steve after a produce section meet cute at the grocery store. Fresh is on Hulu if you want to check it out. It's a horror movie, I would say, but it's kind of a horror comedy. There's kind of it's definitely feels a little daytime horror, if you will, as in that it doesn't feel like the Batman. It doesn't feel dark and brooding. It feels very, bright and funny and interesting, but also really messed up. Let's talk about it. It's got Daisy Edgar Jones as Noah Sebastian Stan, everybody's favorite Bucky, playing a character named Steve, but not Steve Rogers. And then a list of people you probably haven't heard of before. But let's talk about Fresh. What did you think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Susan, we're starting with you.
I loved it. I think it was so good. It was so good. Definitely one of my favorite films of the year.
Nice. What a fun day for you. Two movies you loved. Loving movies is fun.
It is. It's fun.
Aaron?
Yeah, I'll go next. I really liked it. And boy, huge surprise for me. Hey, Aaron, you're reviewing the Batman in a horror movie called Fresh. Which one are you going to like more?
Yeah.
I'm really surprised by how much I liked this movie. I wouldn't go with loved it, mainly because it's just not my thing. Like there's a like I said, messed upness to it that, I don't connect to. But man, this movie is really, really confident. We'll talk more about it. Andrew, what did you think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
Well, I'm going to be the Aaron Dicer of this review. I didn't like it.
No. You didn't like it? Is that
like a strong didn't like?
Didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, a strong didn't like. Maybe it might be one of those movies where I just didn't get it. You know,
Sure.
like if I had laid myself more into like a comedic aspect, like a comedic look on this horrific situation, I could have enjoyed it more. But while I was watching it, I just wasn't in that headspace, and I was like, yeah, this is just a really awful horror film that I just I'm not in the mood to watch right now.
Like where you were mad at me for scheduling it on the show. Like, it's just like, why?
No,
Aaron, why are you making me watch this?
I wasn't mad. It's just, it was definitely one of those movies where if I like turned it on and we weren't doing a review, I would have shut it off. I'm just not in the mood for this, you know?
Well, it is one of those movies where let's talk about this first. And I don't think this is too spoilery. It almost seems to be a trend with Drive My Car. But the opening titles to this movie are 35 minutes into the film, which is always an interesting choice. But I get the choice here because it really is a movie in two parts, right? Like it really is a movie that is selling you on one thing for a little bit and then is like, nope, here's the rest of the movie. And without spoiling anything more than that, it is something I found interesting in that way. But if you get what I hear you saying, Andrew, and what I've actually heard another friend say this too, is you get to that second part where the movie's like, here's what I am, and you're like, I don't want that movie. that's not the movie I want to watch. And so I can definitely understand that feeling.
Well, I went into this movie blind,
right?
So I was like, okay.
Did you even watch the trailer?
No.
Good. You shouldn't. People shouldn't.
Does it give away a lot? I haven't
but
watched this trailer. Does it give away a bunch of stuff?
Yes, I made my husband. I just told him we're watching. I watched the trailer and I was like, you're gonna watch it. It has Sebastian Stan. It's supposed to be really good. Just watch it. So he knew nothing going in, and I mean, we both really liked it.
Well, Susan, talk a little bit more about that. What's some of the things you loved about this?
So I think honestly, this is right up my alley. I always call it's like borderline one of those Lifetime movies on crack kind of stories, I guess you say. And I make huge I grew up on Lifetime movies. I still watch them. They've gone down in quality. I know you're gonna be like, were they ever quality? But like
I get what you mean.
I really love those. It's Lifetime movies. It's a woman in distress, either it's domestic abuse, kidnapped, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is. But Hollywood has done this thing where they make films like this, and sometimes it's a hit, and sometimes it might as well have aired on the Lifetime channel as well. This was just, oh man, I don't know. I didn't know where it was headed. So yes, it's gross. Where they're going with, but I just thought it was Mimi Cave's directorial debut. So starting right off with that, beautifully shot.
So confident.
I love the images here. I don't know. Even though I was queasy in some, I was just they were beautiful. Like even the sickest scenes, it was like grotesque but picturesque is what I said in my review.
I like it.
Just that, and then I love the music, the soundtrack just paired with that. The color scheme, like the palette, it already grabbed me visually. Honestly, the opening scene, I was sold. I am a sucker for, there's a rom-com element to it too. So just that scene alone, if you ever went on dating apps and things like that I was just like, oh God, it's like painfully awkward and realistic. And to go from there to where the movie ends up is just, I don't know. I just thought it was a brilliant script. I really think they knew what they were doing here. And, I have to be careful with this one too, because I don't want to spoil anything about this film. So that's why when I did just like a rapid review, because I think people should go in blind. So the performances are fantastic, especially from Daisy Edgar Jones, and Sebastian Stan is killing it these days. Because I'm also watching Pam and Tommy, and he is probably one of our most versatile actors right now.
He's making some choices. He's definitely making some choices. Yeah.
It's Yeah, I don't know. I
It's
feel
like
like I'm all over the place with just everything I liked about it, but yeah.
well, if with Sebastian Stan, it does feel like he's making a statement of "I'm not just Bucky. Look what
Yeah.
I can do," you know.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as versatility in the roles that he chooses, yeah, absolutely. For me, I actually wasn't really a fan of his performance in this movie for this, and it may have to do with where my headspace was. I'll just say that
Mm.
because it felt like his it was like, oh, so this is I've seen the character trying to pull off a normal like a habit or like trying to pull off an unnormal habit is something like, yeah, this is just what I do every day. It's normal for
Mm-hmm.
me. It's okay. Instead of having somebody realize what they're doing isn't normal. Hopefully I'm trying to dance around spoilers. That kind of makes
Yeah.
sense what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But
No, it's that psychotic disconnect kind of
Mhm.
idea that
there you go.
yeah.
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 But it's well, you mentioned the very very beginning of this movie, the first date she goes on.
Oh my
Mhm.
goodness.
As somebody who's been on several of those Tinder,
Mhm.
Bumble, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
those mobile dates,
Yeah.
app dating, the amount of women that I've talked to who have said like, oh yeah, I've been on many of those dates, blows my mind
Yeah.
that those people are out there and they actually exist, and to
Yeah.
find out later on that would have been a more preferable date.
Yes, that's what's so and that's another thing I love about the film is that but there's something
Yeah,
exactly that, and I'm just like,
absolutely.
I turned to my husband, I was like, oh my god, like yeah,
Bring back
like,
Crab Guy.
like yeah, like
I
go
will
for it.
I will just say this is one of the reasons I firmly fallen to liked it for this movie. I think it is an intricately scripted movie. This is intricately plotted and structured in a way that every scene means something. Every scene is telling you something about not only the plot, but the characters, the themes, what this movie is about.
Yeah.
Mimi has a clear point of view, and it's there from the beginning to the end. The cringe date that this movie starts with is so perfect because not only is it cringe, it feels real. It
Yes.
doesn't.
Yeah.
You can't like. It is over the top, but it's over the top in a way that you're like, yeah, people like that exist,
Yes.
and women deal with this, and and to have this woman directing this movie, and it's not just that cringe date at the beginning where she does this. She does it through the whole thing. There's a there's a real underlying, just how terrible is it to be a woman in the dating world aspect to this movie.
Yeah.
That it uses the overtopness of the second part of what it's doing to bring home that metaphor even more. This is a social horror film, like like a Get Out or something like that. And I'm not,
Yes.
trying to compare it to one of the greatest social horror movies ever made,
They're
but
tonally similar,
very similar. Yeah.
but story-wise they're definitely different.
Yeah, and they're dealing with different, perspectives.
Well, you said it's like the horrors of modern dating. That's really
Yeah. And so yeah, who do you want? The person that reveals all their flaws right off the bat and are terrible in these, nitpicking minuscule ways, or the person who seems amazing and then when you get to know them better is, a terrible person, like, which is preferable to find out, 2 years down the road that, oh, there's something about this person that I absolutely cannot stand, or, I'll live with these little, and I'm not saying it has to be one or the other. That's a false dichotomy. You can find human beings that you connect with in most of the ways. But yeah, it's definitely interesting what it's saying. I want to go back to Daisy Edgar Jones. I love her in this movie.
Yes.
She really hasn't done much other than television, as far as I can tell, and not television that I've really seen. I think this is the first thing I've ever seen her in. And she's so good at conveying these little nuanced reactions to how this world is hitting her. Some of the stuff she does in that first scene is so perfect because you can tell she's walking this line between, I want to be the respectful human that I can be while this person is being an absolute jerk, in such, different ways, and yet at some point she's wrestling with, do I just go? Do I just leave? Do I tell him off? Like, it's just so perfect the way she's performing so much of this stuff.
Should I go now?
Yeah,
exactly. And then where the movie goes in the second part, I think she does such an incredible job at selling so many different things she needs to sell for that second part to really work. And you mentioned that the movie is grotesque. It certainly is. But I didn't feel like it was grotesque in a way that
not torture porn.
Yeah,
right.
it wasn't.
It wasn't like American Horror Story
or Hostel,
right? Yeah, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, we are taking this
artistic.
we're taking this absolutely gross concept, and we're going, okay, let's make it as authentic as we can in some ways, and also as normal as we can. We're not trying to overemphasize how gross this is. It's gross because it's gross. We don't have to overemphasize it. We'll just show it, and it'll, So, I found all of that really captivating. Even what this movie, this is a little spoilery. I don't think it's too bad. Even what this movie has to say about women relating to other women in relationships, and that, like, wow, there are several scenes, where it really is a movie about how women navigate all that has to do with relationships and all that kind of stuff. And, there's a girlfriend that is, a great support and a great girlfriend, and, and then there's a woman who is not. And, like, it has all these things to say about that metaphor. And I was really sold on the what this movie was doing. So, yeah. And as much as I don't like gross stuff, but
and I like what you said, because there is a lot of women support in this film that you may not always see in movies like this. There's a lot more. I would say there's a lot more women supporting each other than not.
Yeah, and there's a moment, this movie, a very specific, purposeful moment where you think the movie is going to do the thing that a lot of movies do, where somebody's coming to help or whatever, and it turns its head in such a beautiful way.
That might be my favorite part of the movie. I'm not gonna lie.
Really,
seeing that character decision, I'm like, wow, they did that. They did that, because that is so real.
Yeah,
I've met this person like 3 or 4 times. I'm not doing this. Nope.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Anything else? Andrew, do you want to go into some more of the negatives, or do you feel like you kind of covered the reasons you didn't enjoy it as much as we did?
No, honestly, I think it's 95% just headspace. And that headspace made me kind of possibly look for negatives. If there was, if there was a different day where I watched this, I'm sure I would have really liked this movie. Come back around Halloween time, if I watch this movie, I might enjoy it, So,
give it a rewatch.
I'll give it a rewatch for sure. I say that, but I really will. I really will give it a rewatch later on.
Nice. Susan, any final thoughts?
I just wanted to follow up on what you said about Daisy's performance, just some of her moments, because the scene when she essentially realizes something that Steve reveals, like initially the first time, her reaction in that scene, I feel like I've seen that so much, like from other characters who've been in that situation. And I've never seen such an authentic reaction from an actress, like ever. That I turned to my husband, I was like, that was incredible. I don't know. It was very, very what I would imagine I would react if I was in her situation.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's some really great acting work throughout. And yeah, my one last thing is this movie, especially if you go in blind, has some real rewatch cool lines. Like, if you watch the first part of this movie again after the second part of this movie, some of the script is really fascinating. Some of the because there are things they say when they meet each other, especially him, that you just look back on, and I don't want to spoil them. Maybe once we're done, I'll tell you guys, some of my favorites. So there are 2 specifically I'm thinking of, where in a different light, you're like, oh, you. You know, like he's like he's almost telling her the truth.
No,
in a couple ways.
yeah.
You know, it's like
if you weren't so handsome.
Yeah, I picked up because I knew what it was about, so I was like, oh,
right.
he's just
And
like
I didn't.
telling her.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah, so I found it, like I said, I think this movie is really intricately scripted and structured and plotted, and I think that does a lot for it. So that is fresh. It is on Hulu if you want to check that out. Before we head into the best ever challenge, another reminder that you can be a SIF Pop member. There are many people who love what goes on here and decide to support at Patreon, patreon.com/SiftPop. Thank you for that. That means the world to us. It allows us to keep doing this, to put into the website. The website is undergoing some changes right now, some fun stuff. So if you check out reviews there, that all helps, but we couldn't do it without you. And so thank you for doing that. If you're curious about it, there are certain perks that come with being a SIF Pop member, some different things, including a bonus podcast. This week, the bonus podcast for our SIF Pop members was a discussion of our favorite Batman movies and our favorite Batmen and our favorite things in the Batman universe. We kind of went deep on Batman stuff. So if you want to hear that, you can become a SIF Pop member at patreon.com/SiftPop. All right, let's move into our best ever challenge. We're going to talk best ever John Turturro movies. He is playing, and we didn't really talk about his performance in the Batman too much because there's so many great ones, but it's so good. I love what he's doing with the Carmine Falcone character. So he's really good. He's been good in so many things, and he's such a great character actor. Let's talk about our favorite 5 John Turturro movies. We'll go number 5 to number 1. And you can trump something if you have it higher than it's mentioned by somebody else. We will talk about it when it is ranked highest in somebody's list. So we'll start with number 5. Andrew, kick us off. What's your number 5 John Turturro?
Well, it's a movie that I actually just recently knocked off my list of shame, and that's Barton Fink.
Nice.
Yeah. It's I love the Coen brothers, and this is one of the most unique Coen brothers movies. Obviously, it's fairly early on in their career, but seeing this movie is so metaphor heavy that if you're not ready for that, it can definitely throw you for a loop. Like, okay, this is definitely not in our world. John Goodman, as always, giving an amazing performance in a Coen brothers movie, and the chemistry actually between John Goodman and John Turturro is fascinating to watch. This dichotomy between these two people here. I haven't used the word dichotomy in so long. It felt weird saying. But
dichotomy is a word you either like or don't like. There's really no other choice. You just either like it or don't. I don't know what you would call that, but yeah, dichotomy.
Yeah, there needs to be a word for that.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, the back and forth is really fascinating. If you haven't seen it and you like the Coen brothers, it's definitely one I would recommend, but don't go in expecting a more grounded movie of theirs.
Yeah. I'll go next. My number 5 is The Color of Money. This is one I just knocked off my list of shame this year, and is a follow-up to... Oh, I just lost the... Is it The Hustler? Is that what it's a follow-up to? Anyways, the pool movie. I think this is obviously 2 of our greats performing together, and just the structure of the movie, the plot of the movie is really fun. The competition, the pool of it. Tom Cruise is always amazing. And Newman, of course, is Newman, Paul Newman.
He won an Oscar for this.
And won an Oscar for this.
Really? You won an Oscar for that?
One of the most interesting continuations of a character, because it's so long after the first.
It didn't feel like a sequel.
No, it doesn't feel like a sequel at all. They're both great movies in their own right, for sure. And they definitely play into each other. But I was glad I knocked this one off the list, because it's really, really, really good and really fun and really interestingly shot too. There's a lot of great stuff in here.
The Hustler came out in 1961. Color of Money came out in 1986.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a quarter of a century. I haven't mentioned it. It's a Scorsese movie, in case you didn't know. Martin Scorsese directed it. It's one of my favorite Scorseses. So there you go. The Color of Money.
That's a good one. We just watched. We watched that a few years back, and I was impressed with it too.
Yeah, it's good stuff. What is your number 5, Susan?
I know I'm gonna get trumped for it,
Okay.
but I put The Big Lebowski.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll trump that.
Yeah.
Back to you then, Andrew. What is your number 4?
Well, mine's gonna get trumped. This is where I have Rounders.
I have it at number 4 as well. So
Oh,
we can go ahead
okay.
and, we can go ahead and talk about it now.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it's obviously it's the epitome of a great poker movie. It's the only poker movie I can really think of that does poker right. On top of that, you have fascinating chemistry between Norton and Matt Damon. This two sides of the coin of like what it means to be a gambler and stuff like that, and doing it for smart and not doing it smart at all. Yeah, I'll leave this with Aaron because I know this is one of your favorite movies.
Oh, it is. In part of it has to do with my love for poker. Part of it has to do with just how fun this movie is, how good the writing is. This is Koppelman that wrote this, and I love one of the things he also does Billions now on Showtime. One of the things I love about his writing is there's almost a Sorkin-esque feeling to it, where people are saying things that you could never come up with in the moment. In his case, it's a lot of pop culture references. He loves throwing pop culture references, sports references, those kind of things into his characters' mouths, and I find all that stuff really, really fun. You've got incredible performers here doing really great work. It's not a perfect movie. The Gretchen Mol character is completely misused in this movie, in my opinion. But you've also got the iconic Malkovich performance here.
Give that man his money.
With one of the strangest Russian accents ever put on film, and yet somehow it works.
Have you heard the story behind that accent?
No, go ahead. I mean, maybe I have, but I don't remember it.
So Damon, they were doing casting and stuff, and they cast Malkovich for this. And I think it was the first day that Malkovich was doing the lines for KGB, and he came out and he did that accent, and Damon had never heard it before, like heard Malkovich do that accent. So he did that. So you think you can beat me in the game, huh? And he did that, and Damon was like, "Oh God, I don't know if this is gonna work." And then as soon as he was done, as soon as Malkovich was done with his lines, everybody in like the after they cut, everybody in the production went like, "Oh, that was amazing! That was so good!" And while they were cheering and complaining, Malkovich leaned into Damon and he goes, "I have no idea how to act. I have no idea what I'm doing."
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love Rounders. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. All right, I think Susan, we're at your number 4 then.
So my number 4 is Fading Gigolo.
I haven't seen this.
Yeah, I can't remember. That was his directorial debut, right?
Could be. I don't know a lot about it.
I honestly, so one thing I struggled with making this top 5 is I tried to pick movies that I remembered him more, but so a lot of movies that he's in, he's kind of like such a background character to me that he's not always very memorable. So I felt like weird not picking movies that like Rounders. I don't know who he was in Rounders.
He was in Rounders. He was like Andrew talks about the Damon and Norton characters being like the two sides of the gambler coin. He basically
he's the coin.
He's the coin. Yeah, he's basically what it means to be a lifetime gambler in that movie.
Okay.
He kind of represents like just kind of the downtrodden. Yeah.
And I didn't remember him in Color of Money. Like for the life of me, I was trying to rack my brain. And I remember really liking that movie. But Fading Gigolo is one I put that because that was the first film that I felt like he was the standout because he was the lead and he wrote and directed it. And I mean it was okay. It was very Woody Allen-esque. Like
that makes sense.
It was very like that vibe. But not as like creepy to me. But yeah, it's fine. It's solid.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I like John Turturro's thinking in that movie of, I'm going to write and direct a movie. What should it be about? Okay, how about I become a gigolo?
Right.
Who are the female leads I should cast? How about Sharon Stone, Sofia Vergara, and was it Vanessa Paradis? Like, I'm just going to get all these beautiful women to be in this movie where I play a Don Juan,
Yeah.
Very Clint Eastwood-esque. style of
very
making.
I was totally thinking Woody Allen, but yeah, well, you're right. Actually,
I was just like, whenever you think of The Mule, Clint Eastwood was like in his 90s and like, I'm gonna direct a movie where I'm in a threesome twice, with young women.
I didn't watch The Mule, but I definitely won't watch now.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Let's go on to our...
I'm gonna make this movie for number 3.
Yeah, let's go on to our number 3s. What do you got?
Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna trump that.
Okay.
My number 3 is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, you know what's going to happen here.
Yes, you're going to trump that. Susan, what is your number 3?
I don't know if you guys ever watched this, but it was called The True Adventure of Wolf Boy.
No, you're coming with the ones I haven't seen. This is amazing.
I actually watched this at Fantastic Fest back in 2019. I think that's what it was. The last one I went to. It was this boy has a real condition. I cannot remember what it is, but
like in something. I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
where you're like truly
covered
hairy,
in hair.
like he's hairy all over, and but he looks like a wolf. And so John Turturro's character is kind of like this like circus like leader kind of person. Like he sees him as like he wants to take him and put him in his act and things like that. So he's actually like very villain-esque. Yeah. He's kind of creepy and scary.
Hypertrichosis.
Sure.
If you say so.
If you say so, I believe you. But yeah, I remember his performance really well in that, just because I think he did a fantastic job in it, and he was so scary. So I really recommend this movie. It was really sweet, a really sweet coming of age drama. The father-son, mother-son kind of relationship in there too. But it was one that's probably really stayed with me from that Fantastic Fest.
Nice. All right,
I'll be right back. Somebody's at my front door. So you can go ahead.
That's cool. We can hang out and talk more about Wolf Boy.
Oh, because you don't know if he's gonna trump your number 2. Well, no, he probably won't.
No, no, he won't trump my number 2, but he'll want to talk about my number 2. So we'll wait till he gets back to chat about it.
I know that y'all are gonna be like, "What the heck with my 2 and 1?"
I'm just sitting here, just trying to lament the people who watched my very confusing review of the Batman and now are going to have to wait for the SIF spoil because it won't come out for a few days, and they're like, "I want to know now." I'm like, "I'm sorry, it's just the way it is." But yeah, totally. He's back.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Let's see. Let's give Phil a nice in to cut with, because we are on
number
2s now. So it would be Andrew's number 2. Is that right?
Okay. Well, this is where I have The Big Lebowski.
Oh, nice. Let me give Phil a better in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So let's move on to your number 2, Andrew. What do you got?
This is where I have The Big Lebowski.
Nice.
So, where he played Jesus.
Yep.
He does a lot of stuff with the Coen brothers, so a giant portion of my list is just Coen brothers movies. And he has a very small but very memorable role in this movie. I think this is really where I think this might be the first time I ever saw John Turturro in a movie. And what an impact he made. It's a character for sure. I love this movie though. The Big Lebowski. Again, John Goodman. This might be my favorite John Goodman performance ever. It's insane how crazy that Walter character is.
Yeah. Susan, you had this at your number 4, I think?
5.
5. That's your number 5. Talk a little bit about The Big Lebowski.
Which is it's a better movie than Fading Gigolo. John Turturro was more prominent in Fading.
Hey, listen, everybody does the best ever challenge the way they want to do it. For us, what we generally say is it's the best movie that they're in. So like there's a category and then you rank your favorite movies, not necessarily. But everybody handles it differently. So totally get it.
Well, with the rest, the bottom 3, I like those more than the Big Lebowski. I'm not as huge of a Big Lebowski fan as most people are. I think it's okay, but he was good in it. He was funny, and I mean, yeah, I can still picture his tongue. So
I need to watch this again. I haven't watched this in a long time. It's not one of my favorite Coens. It's not that I don't like it. I think it's fine. I just don't like it as much as a lot of people do. And I wonder if I'd like it more, kind of having seen more of their stuff and understanding more of, who they are, if I might connect to it more. But I
worked in a bowling alley when I saw this.
Oh, well, that would help.
That would make you like it more. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. All right, so that would be my number 2 then. This was, I think, Andrew's number 3. This is Do the Right Thing. I have at number 2. I've spoken about this movie often since I saw it last year. Absolutely destroyed me.
Oh, that was the first time you saw it? It was last year?
Yeah, I knocked it off my list within the last couple of years. Time has no meaning anymore. I know it was after the pandemic started when I saw it, and that could be any time in the last 3 years, apparently. So, but yes, I've seen it recently for the first time within the last few years, and absolutely destroyed me on many levels, many of which I've talked about before. So I don't necessarily need to go into them again. Other than to say this has been happening for so long and continues to happen, and it's mind-numbing and very, very awful. So but Do the Right Thing is an absolutely incredible movie, and for many reasons, even beyond the socially conscious ones. It is a movie about community. It's a movie about what it means to be community with people like you, people not like you. It's a movie about how hot it is in New York in the summer. So it's a movie about a lot of things.
You feel the heat in this movie.
Yeah,
you do.
Andrew, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, kind of like we talked. I bring up this movie a lot whenever the community in itself is a character. Kind of like recently we did In the Heights. Where, and I think that, New
That's
York,
another hot New York summer movie, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that like those kind of boroughs in and of itself lend itself to making a very interesting dynamic between, making a community as the character itself. Like you can pick the individual pieces of the part, but whenever it comes down to it, these boroughs and stuff and the people within them are in and of itself just a singular character with just different moving parts. Yeah. He does. Spike is a genius. He really is.
Yep. It's incredible stuff. All right, Susan, what is your number 2?
Transformers, the 2007 film.
Yeah.
You know what? I like it.
I love this movie so much. It's the only one I kept of when I was on a kick to own. Well, I had a huge crush on Shia LaBeouf, so I was like, I need to own all of them. And then I thought back and I was like, I'm never gonna watch like second and third one again because they're terrible. But I genuinely think that first Transformers is a great movie. It's a solid story. For people who didn't watch Transformers, you can easily enjoy it. I don't know, it has everything you need in there, and it's I could easily rewatch that movie.
It's definitely the best Transformers movie.
Yeah.
I'll give it that.
Yes.
I'm actually with Susan. The first one. That's it.
I came out of
I don't even like Bumblebee or whatever that one
I kind of like Bumblebee. I think Bumblebee's okay. The first Transformers movie was good enough that I came out of it going, a lot of that was really, really fun. There were some very annoying things about me. There are some very annoying things about me, including that I don't like movies that everybody else loves sometimes. But no, there were some very annoying things about the movie. And unfortunately, the future movies took all of my annoying things and made them the centerpiece of the future movies. And I was just like, oh, great, wonderful.
Pointless metal shavings as they transform.
Explosions, so much
adolescent humor, like all that stuff in the first movie. I was like, oh, that's kind of annoying, but I'm kind of enjoying some of the other stuff. The others just were all of that. But yeah, the Transformers is okay for me. It's okay. It's okay. All right, our number 1s then. Andrew, what do you got at number 1?
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Nice. That was my number 3. Well, tell us about your love for Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
It's my favorite Coen brother. No, I take that back because I forgot No Country for Old Men exists.
Sure.
Well, because No Country is so different from anything that the Coens have ever done
It
before.
does feel different. Yeah, it does feel different.
But I think everybody is perfect in this movie. Tim Blake Nelson, John Turturro, George Clooney. George Clooney, I think this is his career best performance. Obviously, for those of you who have seen the movie, you probably figured out that this is actually just a retelling of Homer's Odyssey movie, or not a movie.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have movies back then, but of his fable of the Odyssey, and their visualization of like different, the representation through visualizations, like the sirens or John Goodman as the Cyclops. You see all these things. But at the same time, it's a great story set in the Depression. If there really wasn't an Odyssey retelling, I still think this would just be an amazing movie because everybody, the environment, everything just seems so genuine, and it's hilarious. Oh, this movie's so good, and the soundtrack, of course, kills. That Man of Constant Sorrow remake is like one of the best ever. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, I had the soundtrack on repeat for sure, and I had the movie on repeat as well. I really enjoy this one. It's a lot of fun. It's interesting. It's quirky. I love this version of Clooney. I think he's really fun doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, I really enjoy Oh Brother, Where Art Thou as well. So that's why I had it at number 3. All right, my number 1 is Quiz Show. This is not a surprise. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and just watched it 2 weeks ago again.
Wow.
Or maybe last week. It's very, very recently, within the last couple of weeks. Or maybe 3 years ago. I don't know. Time has no meaning. But no, this was within the last couple of weeks. And man, it holds up. This movie and what it has to say about integrity and moral choices and honesty and those kind of things is really powerful. Redford is directing the snot out of this movie. So good. Scorsese, by the way, who we mentioned before, Martin Scorsese with The Color of Money, has an acting role in this movie, and he's pretty good. And that's always fun to see. And then John Turturro, I think it's one of Turturro's best performances. It's a completely unique character, and I think perfect for what this movie needs to do to set him up as the counterpoint to the Rafe Fiennes, slick, from money, debonair kind of character that it's doing. Also, really love David Paymer and Hank Azaria as kind of sleazy, fast talking, game show execs. I love this movie. I love so many scenes in it. It's great stuff. Great stuff for Quiz Show. So high recommend if you haven't seen it. They got a few Oscar noms for different things, but yeah. So there you go. That's my number 1.
Yeah.
Susan, what's your number 1?
Mr. Deeds.
Oh wow, an Adam Sandler number 1 on the
It was
best
my first
ever
honorable
challenge.
mention.
I love this
he's
movie
great in it.
so
Very, very
much.
sneaky.
Yeah. And John Turturro is so great in it. And I just, there are some Adam Sandler movies that are whatever, but this for me is in my like top 5 of Adam Sandler movies, like ever, probably top 3 actually. I don't know. It's so good. It's just such a great, rewatchable. I would say you could watch if this is on TV. It's really hard to change the channel for me. I just think it's very. You know what it is? It's Adam Sandler's character. It's kind of that that Ted Lasso effect, kind of where he's just so optimistic. He's so kind to everybody that like the right people that were even like bad guys in the movie, his kindness is infectious, and then it makes them love him, and I see things your way now, but then like the villains are just never going to change, whatever. But I think I've always been drawn to that kind of personality, and I love that who Adam Sandler is playing in it. And then I also really loved Winona Ryder. I thought they actually had pretty good chemistry in the movie, as just like in that the romance in it. And I just really enjoyed the story. And there's a nice little twist there at the end that I thought, and John Turturro plays a big part in that. So
yeah,
it's just it's a really fun, sweet movie.
I'm from Winchesterton, Fieldville.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I do remember enjoying it quite a bit. I remember it was after I had already started thinking, because this is after Little Nicky, right? Is it come directly after Little Nicky, or?
I think it's Little Nicky's terrible.
Yeah,
right. I just remember it came after a couple Sandler movies where I was like, I don't think I'm into Sandler.
I think this was right after Big Daddy, actually.
Maybe it was Big Daddy. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Which I do like.
Oh, I love.
Do
Big
you?
Daddy.
I love Big Daddy.
You don't like Big Daddy, Aaron?
Nah.
What?
Nah. It's just
you like Click.
This is what no, not Click.
Oh, Click makes me cry every time.
Listen,
I watch
it. This is what I'm saying. This came after a point for me where I was like, no, I'm not vibing with Sandler anymore, and it was too dependent on the same shtick, the same stuff. Like, and for whatever reason, this movie, I was like, okay, I can dig this one, Adam. And I don't remember what that was, other than I think maybe the plot's a little more interesting or something. Like you mentioned, there's a twist. I just haven't seen it in such a long time. I don't remember why I enjoyed this one when I wasn't enjoying the others.
Because it's good.
It's good.
So there you go.
Rewatch it. Well, you may not like it. So
what, Mr. Deeds? I probably will. I know I liked something about it. And it was already after I had stopped liking a lot of Sandler stuff. So, and when I say Sandler stuff, I mean his frontman comedies. I don't mean like when he's tried other like dramatic stuff. That stuff's always really Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems. That stuff's always interesting to me, if nothing else. But anyhow, Mr. Deeds #1 for Susan.
They sang Major Tom on the helicopter. Or Space Oddity, whatever you want to call it.
Let's get into our buried treasures for this week. What is that one thing in any area of pop culture that you want to make sure people know about? Susan, you are the guest, so you will go last. I'll kick us off on this one. I'm watching the new season of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and it's been a long while since we've seen any Maisel, which is true for a lot of TV right now because of the pandemic. But yeah, I really had missed this character and this world, kind of this, that era, New York City stand-up comedy kind of stuff. One of the things I love about the show that continues is her stand-up comedy sets are really fun. Like when she does like comedy stuff in the show, it's really, really interesting and fun. And the show is a lot of fun to watch and also interesting and not afraid to deal with the drama stuff as well. And I like that about Maisel. So if you've never checked out Maisel, new season is out. There's not a ton if you want to catch up. I think this is season 4 and they're not super long seasons. So there you go. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is on Amazon Prime. If you're curious where to get it. Andrew, what do you got?
Well, keeping with the Batman theme, I'm going to go with a Batman comic run that I would highly recommend everybody read. Actually, it's what I think is one of the most fascinating, if not the most fascinating comic run for Batman ever, besides like specific graphic novels like Killing Joke or Batman Returns or anything like that. I'm going to go with The Court of Owls. So Batman Court of Owls is a fascinating story arc within the canon of Batman, where if you know, like Gotham kind of, there's the Waynes and the Arkhams weren't the only, wealthy family. Like Gotham is really like the perfect metaphor for like one percenters, and then like everybody else is like incredibly poor. So within this wealthy elite, there's this cultish group called the Court of Owls, and they're really the ones that pull all the strings within Gotham, like Falcone and Maroni and all those like crime bosses. They answer to the court pretty much. The court decides the fate of Gotham, and I think it would be the absolute perfect sequel for this newest Batman movie that we just watched, because with everything going on with Bruce Wayne's parents that he's questioning and stuff, the way that the Court of Owls exacerbates those tensions that he has with his family history and stuff would be the absolute perfect sequel. Because I think one of the big fallouts of or fallings of this recent like run of different Batman movies is haven't really looked at his rogues gallery, if you want to call it that, of like all of the amazing Batman villains that are out there. I think the Court of Owls is one of the most amazing like Batman villains. So don't do Joker, don't do Bane, don't do any of the plethora of like Two-Face or anything that we've seen before. I want something fresh and new. That's why I was actually kind of okay with Riddler in this one, because yes, they did it with Jim Carrey, but they haven't done a real Riddler, Batman villain yet. And I think that they did a great one here. I think that the world that Matt Reeves has set up is so perfect for a Court of Owls for in the sequel. And I highly, highly, highly recommend everybody go and read I think it's like a 10, 15 comic run for the Court of Owls. It's super good.
Nice. That's the Court of Owls run in the comic books. Right. Susan, what do you got for your buried treasure?
I've got I just started watching the new Hulu series, Pam and Tommy. I know I referenced it earlier, but it is so good. I highly recommend everyone watch this. As someone who is just like, I was so young when the sex tape had come out, so it was interesting. I didn't even realize how huge of a deal this was when it did come out. But watching it first, just seeing how that was like
the sex tape.
Yeah. What?
No, you said the first time I watched it. I'm like, wait, the first time you watched the sex tape.
No. I never watched it. I never watched that. No. But as far as like, whatever that came out, like I was just like, I didn't think much about it, but like seeing this show and seeing how difficult that would have been at the time, and in comparison to now, how easy it is to upload a video, and seeing the process of that. But then obviously, like, it starts with that, but then it goes so much deeper into how this affected Pam and Tommy, and in such different ways, with like Tommy Lee. Yeah, it goes back to how things are so different for men and women. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's not going to hurt Tommy's career. If anything, it'll probably boost his sales. People look at him like a hero. Way to go, man. And then Pamela Lee Anderson is slut shamed even more. Yeah. And I love how it dives into her, because I don't know, because I was just young, I never even thought about how like she was probably just so torn up about this. I mean, because I too probably got lumped in there as like, well, I guess maybe it's not that big of a deal to her because of the, what her career was already. But no, that doesn't mean just because she did Playboy, just because she did Baywatch, just because she did Barbed Wire, whatever it was, doesn't mean that any one of us had the right to see her personal sex tape with her husband. Like, and then the backlash that she got from it, as if she did something wrong. Like, I don't know. I have so much empathy for her. I mean, Lily James is just, she's unrecognizable. She is Pamela Anderson. And I never have I wanted more to like speak to a celebrity and just say, I'm sorry that you went through this, because I do feel so incredibly bad for her.
Yeah, there's a lot of empathy there for really what was the seeds of celebrity culture, the idea that somebody can be famous just for being famous, and the toll that can take, especially when it's not something you want. It's also interesting and a little off-putting that they're not behind this either. Like, they're not fans of this show, and it's like, I think for her, she probably just wants people to stop talking about this. Just forget this kind of thing. And so balancing that with the art of telling a story, and is that balanced by the fact that it is taking an empathetic look and trying to take a positive. So yeah, there's a lot of nuance with the progression of technology and how it affects privacy and all of those kind of things that we all continue to deal with and will have to deal with as technology continues to advance. I don't think we're ready for the next level of lack of privacy that's about to happen within the next, decade or so. Like, especially as computers continue to shrink, cameras continue to shrink. There'll be cameras that, like, there already are cameras. We all carry a camera around with us everywhere.
Yeah, we carry a tracking device.
Yeah. So, like, it's just, I just don't think we're ready for what that
Black
next
Mirror.
level is and how we're going to have to make peace with just living with no privacy, living with the idea that anybody might be seeing you at any point, hear what you're saying at any point. Making peace with that's going to be very interesting for culture as we continue to go through that. And this is the seeds of that. This is the seeds of technology destroying privacy. And I don't know that there's anybody to blame for that. It's just it's a natural progression of technology to be able to do those things, and how we use technology is up to each individual, and how we respond to how technology is used on us is up to each individual. And it's just, there's a lot of crazy nuance there that I don't know that we're ready to really dive into, but it's happening, and this was kind of the start of it. I've watched a little bit of this. I'm not caught up on it. It makes some interesting choices, some interesting creative choices in this show that I don't think I'm opposed to. It kind of makes it fun, interesting, quirky a little bit, but overall, I do think, at least as far as I watched, which I think was the first 3 episodes.
The first 3, okay.
I think it is starting to move past some of the here are the facts, here are the characters, into here's what we want to say. And I think I do think it wants to say the right things. I just stopped watching. I don't know if I'll go back to it, but I just stopped watching because, first of all, there's so many things to watch right now.
Yeah.
And second of all, I was just like, I don't know where the benefit to me of watching the rest of this is. So
you should finish.
Okay.
I really think you should finish. It's so good. And just because I guess I just feel like some people, unfortunately, they just don't care. They're like, oh, who cares? Like, I think unfortunately some people don't care about Pamela Anderson. And I'm not saying you have to care about her necessarily, but care about what happened to her and have empathy for all the other women that this happens to, not just in celebrity
I think I've already
world.
Got that. That's what I'm saying. I don't know that I need the show to teach me more about that, and to know that, again, she didn't give her stamp of approval on this. I don't. It's just it's me trying to balance kind of those things and try to figure that out. But no, I totally have empathy for her and anybody that goes through something like this. And I think we need to continue to be aware of those things. And sometimes that's what art does. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what this show is trying to do, is to be able to bring that empathy to the forefront.
Well, I do think there's a specific episode, like second or third to last, just in general, that I highly recommend at least.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll check that one out. So that is Pam and Tommy on Hulu. The Court of Owls is a comic book run, and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is on Amazon Prime. Well, we did it, guys. We reviewed a bunch of movies, except for me, who just made a lot of confusing statements that will be cleared up later in a further podcast when we get to there. Thanks so much for joining us today. For Sif Pop, it is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
And thank you to Drew for putting together some visuals for the show.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
And thank you to Susan for coming by again today. Susan, always love having you on the show. Where would you like people to find you?
You guys can find me at thischicksflix.com. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram and ICTN.TV, Irving Television. So really, nice. I would say Google.
Yeah, Google This Chicks Flicks, X on Chicks and an X on Flicks to find Susan and her stuff. Appreciate you being on. It's always great having you on.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Also want to thank our members of Sif Pop. Support starts at $3 a month at patreon.com/SiftPop. If you want to find out about all of that, just go to the website. You can see the different perks, all that fun stuff. You'll get all the bonus episodes at a certain level. Comes right in your own ad-free podcast feed if you want to check that out. Lots of ways to connect with us. You can leave a comment, a rating, or a review at Apple Podcasts, or you can email us at feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too, so let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than cooking the perfect meatball. We will be back next week with Turning Red, the new Pixar movie, and a report from the CCAs. So it'll be the CCA show next week on the show, and we will see you then. Bye.
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 To the live chat, I am so sorry. We record spoilers off live. You will have to wait for the episode to come out on that to hear my more specific thoughts that are probably wrong, and I will probably be convinced they're wrong by the end of it. We'll see how it goes. But I do appreciate you guys hanging out with us live. So Lee and Jay Bourgeois and Mark, I see in there as well. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. And we will catch you on the next one. So.